Hey, are you aware of your position? Do you think a mere nobody like you is allowed to talk back to me? Hate your parents for your low status. You don't need a low-educated middle school graduate, so go home.
How terrible. What kind of interviewer could be so terrible? No, honestly, I was shocked that someone of such a low level was in my company in the first place. Later that day, I asked Brown, who was summoned by me to the president's office, a question.
Hate your parents for your low status. We don't need a low-educated middle school graduate, so go home, you bottom-feeding bitch.
I'm pretty sure it was you who said that, Mr. Brown, right? Brown seemed to have remembered the words he said. I guess he finally understood why he was summoned to my office. His face turned pale. In the old days, it was common for a company to succeed down from father to son, but this is not the case anymore. It is no longer unusual today for a young person to start a business and grow a company in a short period of time. In such cases, the CEO of the company is young, and the CEO is not necessarily a man. It is also common nowadays to have a young female president. That is exactly the case with our company. I, Eva Smith, started a small apparel company at the age of 30 and gradually expanded the enterprise from there. It is now a company that is as big as any major corporation. Thanks to that, I have risen to the more than adequate position of female president at the young age of 38 now. Many of my company's employees were hired mid-career. I have been actively trying to bring mid-career employees into the company. This is because mid-career hiring has many advantages. Mid-career hires are experienced and skilled and they reduce training costs. And they often have relationships from previous companies they worked for and relationships with business partners. There are many other advantages. Of course, there are disadvantages as well, but by concentrating follow-up on those areas, our company has not many employees who quit mid-career. While focusing on employee training, we also make sure to always have someone around who can casually be there for the employees so that their worries and frustrations do not build up. I always want to be mindful of the fact that it is not only important to be able to do a good job, but also to be able to think about how people are feeling and under what circumstances they are working, because this is a company that brings together many people. In my position as president, it is easy to neglect to pay attention to every corner of the company, so I always make sure that the person in charge of the department or division reports to me. And it is no exaggeration to say that most truthful voice in this day and age is the internet world. The internet is a place where people's opinions can be freely expressed because their faces are not visible. That is why I often search for my own company on the internet and regularly check its reputation. On the internet, more is said about the bad parts of a company reputation than the good parts. However, this is a good thing for me because I can correct the company's learnings by referring to the opinions of the bad parts of the company. One day, when I went to the office, the executive director of the Human Resources Department was waiting for me. Since he did not often make an effort to talk to me, I decided to let him through to the president's office to ask him what was going on.
To tell you the truth, I was looking up the company's reputation on the internet yesterday, and I found some bad opinions written about the company. And by bad opinions, I mean that things were getting pretty serious.
From the way the executive director was talking, it sounded like something pretty bad is going on. What is happening?
You have been conducting employee recruitment exams for a few days now. The first test is a written test, and the second test is an interview.
Yeah.
That interview is a problem, and there's a big problem on the internet with the opinion that the interviewer's attitude and responses are just too much.
Interviewers?
They treated me badly. They flushed me down the drain with nasty remarks, and they verbally abused me, etc. I've been reading through it, and I really couldn't even read it. This is so horrible. There's even a rumor going around that if you get a job at that company, you're not going to have a good time. Or that you shouldn't go to that company for an interview, etc. I was shocked by so many stories.
If that were true, the company's management itself would be in trouble. Who is doing such a terrible interview for our company?
That interviewer is probably an employee named Robert Brown, from the way people talked. He is an employee who usually works in the sales department.
Robert Brown?
What do you say? Should I call him up and talk to him?
No. A person like that probably won't talk easily. They'll just end up blabbing or making excuses. It is a typical pattern that people who are arrogant toward those who are in a weaker position usually try to get away with making excuses so as not to expose them to their superiors. It's just so unfair. How old is Robert Brown anyway? How did he get into our company?
From what I have been able to find out, Brown is 40 years old. He apparently joined our company as a mid-career hire when he was 35.
A mid-career hire?
Yes, he had been working for a furniture manufacturing company before that. He is said to be the kind of employee who doesn't know whether he is working or playing in his daily work. He got in trouble once for saying something lewd to a female employee, but it seems to have been forgotten.
Why would someone like that work for my company? I can't help but regret tremendously that my company hired such an employee.
What should we do? Shall I keep an eye on the actual interview?
That's the only way to instruct such a person in the act. But he won't play the ball where his superiors can see him. And if there is no one there who is a superior, I'll just ignore and do whatever he wants. After saying that, I thought for a while. I came up with an idea. How about this? With the executive director's expression of questioning behind me, I pulled my long hair back into a bun and put on the glasses. If I wore light makeup, he wouldn't be able to tell that it was me. Seeing me like that, the executive director said,
"Certainly."
Then he came back to himself and said,
"No, Miss President, don't tell me you're going to disguise yourself and pretend to be an interviewer. That's maybe too much,"
she said in panic. "No, I'm not going to be an interviewer. I'm going to be interviewed."
"Huh?"
"I'm going directly to Brown's interview. That way, no matter what happens, he won't have any excuses."
"Isn't that a little bad? I mean, you could get sued legally."
"If I am sued, fight it head on. I can't entrust the company's future to an employee who could carelessly harm young people and discard them without permission, and I will never allow that. Let's fight him head on." In addition to Brown, there were 3 other employees in the interview room. The 3 employees had no particular problems, and all 3 seemed to be quite fed up with Brown's wanton behavior. On the day of the interview, I wore a plain suit, tied my hair up in one bun, put on my glasses, and waited in the line in the hallway with the other job hunters who had come for the interview. After a while, I suddenly heard wild laughter coming from the room. Everyone in line looked up in a huff, but no one knew what the laughter meant. A short time later, the job hunters came out of the interviews were over. One of the 3 was a woman who had red eyes and was apparently trying to hold back tears. While we were waiting for our turn, every time a job hunter came out of the interview, their facial expression was clearly strange. I couldn't imagine what the hell was going on, and finally my turn came round. When I entered the room, I saw 4 interviewers in a row, and among them was a man who looked at the job hunters as if he was licking them and smiling wickedly. I knew immediately that that man was Brown. As we 3 job hunters sat down in our chairs, Brown opened his mouth.
"Just like the 3 people before, people who are not very flamboyant are here again. Can't you at least entertain the interviewers optically?"
Saying that, he kept looking at me, the only female job hunter among us.
"Mr. Brown, please proceed with the interview,"
said the interviewer next to me. Brown looked at the documents in his hand as if he had no choice but to ask questions to each of us one by one. Then it was my turn. Michelle Place, which is a pseudonym.
"Miss Michelle Place, you're 30 years old and you're still looking for a job?"
Brown asked me derisively. He was 35 years old when he was hired mid-career. "Yes, I quit the company I was working for last year."
"Huh, a woman over 30 again. When I mention their appearance, they are strangely sensitive. If there's even the slightest hint of it, they make a big fuss about it and then they quit the company to collect their alimony. Even though they don't look that great. I see you're not married. You don't seem to have enough experience with men."
"You're not trying to cause a fuss at our company, are you?" I couldn't stop myself from being shocked by those words. The other interviewers looked at him as if to say, "Oh no, not again." If people were told something like this right from the start, there was no way they could continue to conduct a proper job interview.
Moreover, if I look carefully, it says that you graduated from junior high school. But isn't this a mistake? What about high school?
I didn't go to high school. My father passed away when I was in middle school, so I started working right after I graduated from middle school.
That said, would you come to take an entrance exam for our company as a junior high school graduate? And as a woman? You underestimate our company.
The terms of employment stated that there is no condition for education and gender. As I recall, the president of your company was also a middle school graduate and a woman, wasn't she?
Do you honestly come to us believing the terms and conditions of employment? Anyone would know that these are superficial conditions. And if you dreamed of becoming our president, you're even more mistaken. Even that president had to put her body on the line to get here anyway. You know what I mean by putting your body on the line, don't you? She literally put her body on the line. I don't know how many times she was naked in front of elite men. She must have served them pretty well.
Are you making fun of the president?
She made the company so big as a woman, but there is only one thing that women can do, and I wonder how much money she got from all these men.
Are you not proud of your company?
A company is where you get paid. It's not about pride, it's about how much money you can make without wasting any effort. It's about efficiency. Passion toward work is fine, but you only need a handful of people like that.
There are plenty of people who work hard and find fulfillment and purpose in their work. I'm sure many of the job hunters who came today are like that. Aren't you in a position to be seen as an example in front of such people? Haven't you ever thought about what you can convey to job hunters with such an arrogant attitude? When I said that, Mr. Brown said loudly,
Are you aware of your position? Do you think a mere dropout like you is allowed to talk back to me?
He yelled at me, but I said, I was just expressing my opinion properly. Why am I not allowed to give my opinion to someone like you who can only look down on others? I retorted.
You will get it. You had no intention of joining our company from the beginning. Are you having fun? What do you have against the elites for making us spend so much useless time for you? Hate your own parents for your low status, and we don't need a poorly educated middle school graduate, so go home.
Then, I will go home.
Go home. Go home quickly, you bottom-feeding bitch.
And so, my interview was over. I was shocked at how bad it was. No wonder the interviewers at my company had such a bad reputation. There must be a lot of job hunters who have quit or given up on joining our company after an interview like that. Interviews are always nerve-wracking and stressful, but if you have an interviewer with an attitude like that, there is no way you will get the results you want. Brown would have to take some responsibility. Later that day, I called the director of the Human Resources Department and the general manager to the president's office. Both were Brown's supervisors. And after that, I called Brown. Brown had never been to the president's office before and came in looking quite nervous. Standing there in front of me, the general manager and the director, it was as if Brown was being interviewed.
Why did you call me here?
I asked Brown a straightforward question. Mr. Brown, you're currently assigned as an interviewer for our company's entrance examination, aren't you? Brown's expression hardened on the spot, perhaps because he had an idea. I've heard that you've been saying and doing some pretty inappropriate things to job applicants during those interviews, and I'd like to check on that. Then, Brown immediately replied,
Oh, no, who would do such a thing? I always interview with utmost sincerity in order to hire the best employees.
He desperately tried to make excuses. Have you ever made a comment about a woman's appearance to a job hunter?
No way. I have never done that. That is the worst thing you can do as an interviewer. My company has made it a condition of employment that education and gender are not a factor, so I've never made any comments about that. That is one of the reasons why your company is attractive.
Do you remember telling me that I succeed by putting my body on the line? Haven't been naked in front of elite men, and that I was pretty good at such service like that.
What?
Brown must have remembered that he said that line because he looked at my face and finally understood why he was called. His face turned pale as he looked at me. Hate your own parents for your low status. We don't need a poorly educated middle school graduate, so go home, you bottom-feeding bitch. I'm pretty sure it was you who said that, Mr. Brown, though.
What? But then it's not fair. Why did you... No, but
Brown's face was pale and slurred, and what he was saying was unclear. There was no way he could make excuses at this point. I can't help but think of all the job hunters who came to our company for the entrance examination because they knew our company's policies and wanted to join, only to be turned down, frustrated, or dropped by an arrogant and selfish interviewer like you. You need to take responsibility for that. Saying this, Brown immediately got down on his knees on the spot.
I am so sorry. Please, don't fire me. I still want to work for this company. Please.
You're the one who said efficiency is important. How much money you can make with low effort? My company is not the place for that kind of work.
Well, I will change. I will work on myself, so please don't fire me.
At that moment, the executive director's phone rang and he excused himself. I was thinking about what to do about Brown. If I left him in the company as he was, he would just be useless. Since he had done so much, perhaps the responsibility should be to fire him. As I was thinking this, the director came back into the president's office. The director said,
Miss President, actually...
She reported something to me in a whisper. Is that really true? When I asked the director, she silently nodded. Brown was still on his knees in a kneeling position. I started to talk to him. I understand. However, you'll need to step down from the interviewer, and your salary will be cut 50% for 3 months, and you'll have to write a letter of apology.
50%?
Do you have any idea how many good employees we've lost because of you? A 50% cut for just 3 months is a small price to pay. Or do you want to quit here and look for another job?
No, it's totally fine. Thank you so much.
And so, Brown stayed at our company. However, there was no way that this matter would end without a hitch. I dared to keep Brown at the company after hearing the information from the director, who reported to me about something while talking to Brown. A week later, the director came to the president's office to make her report.
Miss President, it's about Brown.
What happened after that?
This morning, I received a phone call from Brown and he said he will resign from the company. I haven't been able to contact him since then.
Yeah, that's what I predicted.
The company has been getting quite a lot of complaint calls, email, prank calls, etc. And I honestly don't think we can deal with this any longer.
In fact, the call that came to the director on that day I talked about Brown was a call from the sales department reporting on Brown. Apparently, people who had lost patience with Brown's so egregious interviewing behavior made an anonymous internet message board and had begun to identify Brown. I don't know what kind of methods are used on the internet, but it's very easy to identify an individual. Brown's full name, address, phone number, company department, his parents' home address, and their phone number, and even his relatives were identified. That's why I decided not to fire Brown, but to keep him at the company. I wanted to see how he would clean up his mess. The company received more than 30 emails every day with complaints. Why are you hiring that kind of employee? He should be fired as soon as possible. And so on. Apart from that, I also received more than 20 junk emails in a day with viruses. I guess they're also Brown related. I also received dozens of phone calls complaining about the company, and other employees were also annoyed a lot by the repeated prank calls. The situation was becoming a considerable hindrance to work for both the company and the employees. Above all, it seems that the harassment of Brown himself was much more terrible. There were prank calls to his phone that never stopped ringing. Prank calls, and some outrageous posting on some internet message board that said Brown would lend unlimited money along with his phone number. So he got calls from some very scary people and from foreigners who spoke a foreign language. The same kind of harassment extended to his parents' house, and Brown finally said,
I have no choice but to quit my job and move out of my house as well as my parents. I am sorry.
and we never heard from him again. Brown's resignation won't hurt the company in any way, and I guess he deserved that. The internet is a scary place.
I'm sure they'll still be harassing the company for a while.
That can't be helped, because it's also my fault for letting an employee like that go unchecked and not notice anything. I feel sorry for the job hunters who were affected. No one knows where Brown went, and what happened to him after that. However, according to information on the internet, someone saw Brown dressed in rags in some town. Brown was said to have received a large amount of bread waste from a bakery, but no one does know if that was really Brown or not. Such sightings were written about on the internet, but as time went on, the topic of Brown naturally disappeared. The message boards that were once ablaze with Brown's story are now full of stories about someone else. Whatever that case may be, it seems unlikely that Brown has reached a happy ending. Since that incident, I have been giving interviewers tutorials on how to handle interviews in other situations. And I have decided to delegate that critical role only to trusted employees who understand the importance of interview. The harassment stopped after a while. I was reminded once again that the internet is truly a scary place because soon after Brown left the company, word spread so fast that he apparently quit our company. I think everyone has a different attitude toward work, and it is difficult to say which one is right or wrong because the values are different for each person. However, I don't think it is ever acceptable to make fun of people who work hard and have a positive attitude. I would like to continue to work with good employees in the future.